Well, as we enter this season of Advent, I like to just help people realize this wonderful, amazing, joyful time that we're entering into. And so I'm going to talk about Advent and use Advent as an acronym. So I'm going to give you a word for each letter of Advent and kind of enter deeply into this mystery. So first of all, A. A is for Advent. What does Advent mean? Advent actually comes from the Latin, so the etymology of Advent is ad, which means to, and venire, which means come. So Advent means to come. And so the idea of Advent is we're celebrating this reality that Christ is coming to us. And there's three Advents that the church celebrates over all these millennia. The first Advent is his first coming. So the first time that he came was 2,000 years ago in Bethlehem. And before that, for thousands of years, the prophets proclaimed and prophesied that he would come. So his first coming was in Bethlehem. And now this second Advent that we are in, the second epoch that we are in, is also waiting for him to come again. And so now we desire and we long and we yearn and we can't wait for Christ to come again. And then there's this third sense of Advent that we want him to come to us right now, in our present moment, in our current state of life. We long for him to come. One of the things that I like to ask people during this time of Advent is, do you really want him to come? Like, if you had a choice right now that his second coming could happen right now at this moment, would you want it to come? Or would you kind of be like, give me a couple weeks, and then I want Christ to come? Are we longing and yearning for him to come to us right now in this moment in our present day life? The second is D. So the word for D is dream. So Advent is a time of dreaming. It's a time of being aware even of our dreams. So many of the things that happened during the first Advent were angels or messengers coming to people in dreams. So it was angels coming to Joseph in a dream, telling him that Mary would be pregnant, that they should not go back to Bethlehem, that they should go to Egypt. All these messengers came to Joseph in the form of a dream. And so for Advent, I would just invite you to pay attention to your dreams. That God can come to us in our dreams and speak to us in our dreams. Not only at night, but also if we daydream during the day. If we think about God during the day and ponder him, he will often come to us in our dreams. So pay attention to your dreams. There's a wonderful mystery in how God can come to us in that way. ADV, vigilant. Okay, so V is for vigilant, or to be vigil. The church invites us to be vigil during Advent. And what vigil means is to be awake all through the night. So that's what it means to spend a time in vigils, to be awake all through the night. So really we're invited during Advent to spend time being vigil. So maybe even to spend time in darkness and silence and prayer, being vigil and aware of what God is doing in our lives. It's also a time to be vigilant against sin or against anything that would keep us from realizing or recognizing God in our lives. I realize what I have been very vigilant with lately, and probably all of us, is trying not to get the virus, right? So think about how vigilant we are with washing our hands, with sanitizing our hands, how vigilant we are with staying 6 feet apart from people, how vigilant we are with trying to practice all of these things to keep the virus from us. But do we have that same vigilance when it comes to sin? That we are vigilant to try to not let any sin into our lives that would keep us from preparing our hearts to receive Christ. So V is for vigil, to be vigilant all through this season of Advent. E is entertain. That might seem like a weird word that we talk about, because usually for us, entertainment, we think about checking out or entertaining bad thoughts. But entertain is another word that if you look at the Latin, what the etymology of entertain means, it means entre is among, and tenere is to hold. So entertain is to hold these beautiful thoughts in our minds, and as Mary did, in our hearts. So entertain during Advent is to hold Christ closely in our minds and in our hearts. Just like Mary carried him in her womb, we also carry him in our minds and our hearts. So entertain Christ. Hold him in your mind and in your heart. N is for new. Realize that God is doing something new in you during this season of Advent. He's bringing about a totally new way of life for you. Christ will come to you in a new way that he never has before. God is doing something new. So celebrate and rejoice in the newness of Advent. And finally, T is for turn. Advent ultimately, as we hear in the psalm today, is, Lord, make us turn to you. Let us see your face that we may be saved. So Advent is a time of allowing God to turn us toward himself. It's a time to allow God to reorient us back to him. So if we've been kind of on a wrong path in our lives, this is a time to turn back to the Lord. And one of the most beautiful ways of turning back to the Lord is the Sacrament of Confession. So Advent's often a time where we celebrate the sacrament more frequently, where we have it available for people. So if you've been away from the sacraments, if you haven't been to confession in a while, this could be a wonderful way for you to turn back to him. And just like the potter is shaping and molding the clay, right now he's shaping and molding your life. And your life has probably turned and taken directions that you have not intended or planned or even understood. But realize that he's turning you. He's turning all of us towards him. And so let yourself enter deeply and profoundly into this season of Advent. Try to remember all of those acronyms from Advent and really let this be a time of retreat. Let it be a time of prayer. Let it be a time of wonder and awe. Let it be a time where Christ turns us towards him. Let it be a time of joyful anticipation and mystery. And let it ultimately be a time for us to prepare our hearts for the coming of our Lord this Christmas.